I work with people, helping them navigate their way through their life struggles. I help them identify areas where they may be applying some of their pain from past experiences into their current realities, and then lead them towards finding a more purposeful, spiritually led way of life, where they can incorporate attributes such as kindness and acceptance and awareness and forgiveness. Also a mother who struggles with her mental health. And I have a 2-year-old toddler, and I suppose one key area that I have to work on for myself is self-regulation. And I suppose when you throw regulating a crazy 2-year-old's tantrums in on top of that, it occasionally leads to overwhelm. And yesterday was one of those days. I had PMS. I just couldn't seem to get on top of things. I was extremely tired. I suppose I would be quite hard on myself. I get up very early so that I can meditate, so that I can exercise, so that I can set my intentions before the day kicks off. And at times I just get really, really tired. And yesterday evening, I suppose, for want of a better word, my little guy is full on. He's demanding. He's very energetic, and it's fabulous to watch. I mean, I love the fact that he has so much energy, that he has so much aliveness and vibrancy about him. That being said, it can be hard to handle, particularly when you've got to the part of the day where you're just about, kind of scraping the barrel when it comes to your tolerance levels. And as I said, he was just having one of those difficult evenings. He didn't want to comply with anything, and I just found myself really not enjoying the experience at all. I was feeling resentful. I was feeling internally angry. I just wanted him to be in bed. In fact, I just wanted to walk out the door and not come back at that very, very moment, And eventually I got him to bed. Now, as I said, I kind of would have been very kind and tolerant with him, but I possibly wasn't as attuned with him as I should have been, because I was so caught up in how I was feeling. And I put him down and I just burst into tears, because not only was I having a difficult evening, I was giving myself a mental flagellation for the fact that, I wasn't kind of incorporating all of these spiritual concepts into my day, that, I wasn't being generous in my thoughts. I was literally like, oh, you little shit. And, I kind of wasn't being patient. I wasn't being tolerant. I wasn't accepting the moment for what it should be. And I went to bed, and even though I did a mental dump, I brought it all with me and woke up again with it this morning, and even during my meditation, it was popping into my head. I was thinking about, how bad a mother I was, and, all of this stuff that is so unhelpful to you. And it just so happened on my way to the gym. What was even worse as well is, I think sometimes when I have an evening like that, I feel a need to vent somewhere. So I tend to get on the text messages to my husband if he's at work, and I'm like, ah. And so he feels the wrath of what I can't express to my son. So as I said, I was feeling such an overwhelming level of guilt, and I was just listening to a very interesting podcast. It's The One You Feed, and there was a guy on it called Chris Grosso, and I must get his book actually, but he was talking about spirituality. And I suppose one element of spirituality that I do try to impart with others is its ubiquitous nature. It's not just about the practice in the morning where you sit for 10 minutes, or it's not just about kind of the yoga practice that you do, or the few minutes of mindfulness. It's every single moment you can make different choices that are more spiritually based or driven, as opposed to making very kind of self-absorbed, selfish decisions, are non-charitable or unkind decisions or unkind thoughts. And but it was funny, he was talking about how we think of our spiritual practice as being very much about the the benevolent attributes, such as kindness and such as generosity. And he said that an awful lot of our spiritual practice is when we're in that state of distress, and when we recognize that we're in that state of distress, our anger, our resentment, you know, and talking to ourselves and bringing ourselves through it compassionately. And again, this is something that I oftentimes apply, but as I said yesterday, I just couldn't get my head around it. It was like as if, you know, everything had just, all of my tools had just abandoned me, and I just wasn't able to regulate. And I think sometimes we feel like as if we failed somehow when that happens. I know I do. I feel like, oh Jesus, you know, I've been working so hard, and all of a sudden this just this happens, and I'm not able to apply all of the concepts that I've been working on, and somehow I'm deemed a failure. And I suppose it's about understanding that it isn't kind of so black and white, you know, that there is no such thing as being immediately successful or reaching a final destination when it comes to practicing more spiritually driven concepts, such as, you know, the kindness and the compassion and the understanding and the forgiveness of others and of the self. And it's about being lenient with yourself and just, I suppose, finding your own way. I mean, sometimes I think we feel we have to follow other people's guidelines for what our spirituality entails. And it's really something that you can paint by numbers. Now, I'm not saying that you can make up your own lineage, but that you can kind of incorporate the fundaments of what you want to do in it. And definitely one that I need to work on a little bit more is understanding that it's not possible to always get it right, you know. Again, this kind of, and I think sometimes that's where people struggle with spirituality, because if there's any bit of ambiguity, we find things hard to put in place. We find things hard to sustain. It's like we need, you know, a kind of a set of instructions. We need a final destination, and we need to know that we're going to be successful. And that's just not how it works. It's basically just every single day, starting from scratch, you know, giving yourself and almost a fresh sheet to go on, and doing your best to show up for yourself and to show up for others, and to be mindful and to be aware in as many ways as possible. And I suppose to show yourself compassion as well. You know, I suppose I came home today from the gym. My little fella didn't give a shite. Like, he was just I was there like, oh, he's damaged for life, and he was pretty much, there's mommy, you know, and a kiss and on with his business. And I suppose, you know, if we could be maybe a little bit more childlike in our approach to ourselves, and not take ourselves so seriously sometimes. You know, again, I'm a serious woman. I do tend to take myself seriously, and I do tend to be quite hard on myself when I fail in my endeavours to regulate and to be a better person. And the reality is, I'm failing every single day of the week. I mean, two of the things that I have found most difficult to navigate are motherhood and my relationship. And literally the attributes and the disciplines that I'm trying to impose on so many areas of my life, they're the ones where I struggle to show up with them the most, and they're the ones that I have to work on the most, and they're the ones where I fail the most. And it's about, as I said, you know, kind of being compassionate, be understanding with yourself, and just keep going with it, and just keep trying, and just keep finding new ways in which you can be that kind person, and be that humanitarian soul, and be the light, you know, in your own life. If you are struggling with any of the above, your mental health, motherhood, any aspect of your life, or if you would like to get to grips with more spiritual practices that you hope you can apply in your day-to-day life, get in touch with me on the website. It's fundamentals.ie.